Today, I'm excited to walk you through my process for maximizing the potential out of the SONY ZV-E10 Mark II. I'll cover important initial settings that you need to input into the entire menu system, demonstrate how I've customized the buttons on the outside of the camera, and share with you how I efficiently switch between frame rates, exposure modes, and focus modes. Also, we will explore the function menu and I'll reveal some tips that you might not be aware of. If you want to skip this video and instead directly download the settings, transferring them from my camera to your camera, I have included a free link to easily upload those settings so that you can just move on and save some time. This will allow you to quickly grab your camera and start shooting. When I created this exact video almost 3 years ago on the ZV-E10 Mark I, some people said I went a little bit too fast and others said I went a little too slow. So I'm trying to find that fine line between too fast to comprehend and too slow to be like, just get on with it. But just bear with me here. Straight out of the box, it's a good camera. But just like every single camera that you could purchase brand new off of the shelf, we can really customize its settings to take it to a whole nother level. If you've already been messing around with some of your settings and you want to reset it back to the factory settings so you can follow along with this tutorial, then go ahead and turn your camera on. You're going to go to Menu, then we're going to scroll over to the left side. This is the left column where all of our options are and the main menu are. And we're going to go down to the bottom where we see the suitcase. We're going to go to the right, go down to Reset, Save Settings. I'm going to go to Settings Reset, click on it, and then the option that I'm going to pick is Initialize. Once you click on that, you'll get one more option before you actually do it. I say go for it. You press Enter, and then it gives you even one more. We say Enter one more time. Now we are initializing back to the factory settings. Now just run through this until we get back to the main display. All right, here we are back in the main display and we're ready to get this camera customized. This video aims to prepare you to capture cinematic or movie style shots with your SONY ZV-E10 Mark II, making it easier to operate the camera, also in low light situations. By customizing these camera settings, you can enjoy a more personalized shooting experience. You'll gain better control of your actual camera and the functions within it, and achieve your desired results more efficiently. Now, this video is a shortened or abridged version of a longer and more detailed video that I made with video samples and examples in my course on the SONY ZV-E10 Mark II. It goes into the details and the why behind all of these settings. This video is more of just, I'm showing you how I set mine up, why I do it, but if you actually want to see me go out into the field and use these settings, then you may want to check out the course. All right, without further ado, let's jump in. You may want to format your SD card just to have a clean slate. But before you clean your SD card, make sure all of your data is offloaded. So the way you're gonna wanna format your card is go ahead and hit your menu button, head down to shooting. We're gonna go over and come on down till we get to media right there, number 5 out of 56. Go to format, click on format, performs quick format, all data will be erased. Let's press OK. And now we are formatting our card. Also, this is a video-centric tutorial, meaning we are setting up the camera for cinematic movie making. So let's make sure that we are in video mode. The way we're gonna do that is we're gonna come up here and we see that we have the little switch here. We're gonna make sure it's in the middle, which is a little icon of a video camera, and that's the one that we wanna be on. Also, if you're in Europe or other parts of the world, you will wanna change your NTSC/PAL settings for whatever region you're in. To do that, let's go to our menu. We're gonna go over and down to our setup, which is that little yellow suitcase. Then we're gonna go over to area date, and then head down to NTSC PAL selector. PAL typically operates at 25 frames per second, while NTSC operates at 30 frames per second. If you're not 100% sure what region you're in, just do a little bit of research on Google. That way you can set up your NTSC/PAL selector. There are 5 different things that we need to do to set this camera up to get cinematic type shots. First, we're gonna jump into the main menu to adjust some of those settings to optimize the camera's performance. After that, we're gonna customize the buttons on the outside of the body, and then we'll dive into the function menu, the My Menu section, and then also set up a few memory recalls. Let's do a quick run through of what those 5 different things are so that you're not lost from the beginning. The menu system, when you press on it right here, will provide access to a wide range of settings and options for customizing the camera's functions and features. Then next, when I say customize the buttons, these are all the buttons as they are on the outside of the camera body. And this C1 right here will operate our background defocus. And this little trash can down here will operate our product showcase set. And each one of these selector wheel options has different options, but we are going to change all of those around. And here's our function menu and the way that it's set up right now. The function menu provides quick access to your most frequently used settings and functions. And here's our menu number 1. As of right now, there's nothing set up in here. This My Menu feature allows you to create a customized menu with more frequently used settings for quick and easy access. Not as used as the function menu, but I would say the next step down the line. And then we have memory recall. Memory recall allows you to save and quickly access different sets of camera settings. This can be very useful when you frequently switch between different shooting scenarios or when you want to have specific settings ready for particular shooting conditions. You can save various combinations of settings like aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, and a lot more. And then save that set of exposure settings as a memory recall. We're gonna set up 3 different memory recalls that you can quickly toggle between. One is for 4K 24 cinematic shooting, one is for shooting in low light, and one is for shooting in bright sunlight. All right, so there's our 5 different ways that we're gonna customize this camera, and they have to be in order because there's some things at the beginning that we're gonna touch again at the end. With that being said, let's jump right into the first part of this video and adjust our menu settings. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna change our file format, and we'll change that file format to XAVC-HS 4K. And the way that you're gonna get there is you're gonna go to Menu, we're gonna head over to the side column right here under My Menu, and we're gonna go down to Shooting. We're gonna go to Image Quality/Record, and then we'll go to File Format. Right now it's set as XAVC-SHD. We're gonna click on that, and then scroll on up till we get to XAVC-HS 4K. The 3 different 4Ks in the file formats, HS 4K, S4K, and SI 4K, are different video recording formats available on Sony cameras that shoot in 4K. I choose XAVC-HS 4K as my go-to file format because my editing rigs like that file size, and I don't see too much choppiness while I'm editing that footage. Also, there's not much of an image quality difference, and if you're not doing a lot of color grading, then XAVC-HS 4K is the one that I suggest you try out. But with that being said, I do think you should try it out, go out and film some clips around town, and then come home and edit it on your rigs to make sure that your editing rig can handle it. Now that we have our file format set in place, we're gonna head down and go to Movie Settings, which is the next one down. We're going to leave our record frame rate to 24 frames per second or 24p, and we are gonna change our record setting to 100 megabits per second, 420 10-bit. Here, I also leave it set to 420 10-bit instead of 422 because the trade-off between image quality and having to create proxies makes it worth it to me. I go into a lot more depth with these recording settings, but for now, we're just gonna do a quick one. We're gonna go to 100 megabits per second, 420 10-bit. But again, I would suggest that you go and you test these settings out before you go out and film an entire day with it. After we're done setting our file format and movie settings, we're gonna come out of there by hitting the menu button and going down to the log shooting setting. Now this all depends on your level of skill. If you're new to the game and are unsure on how to shoot and expose in log, then you may want to leave this off for now. But if you're confident and you have a couple LUTs that you want to upload to the camera, then this is where you would turn this one on. And it all depends on your skill level. If your log shooting is grayed out, then you're going to want to turn your intelligent auto off, take it over to manual exposure. The way we'll do that is we'll hit the menu button, come out into the main display like this. I'm going to come to my function menu. I'm gonna go to my shooting mode, which is the bottom right of the function menu. Click on it, and then I'm gonna head up here to manual exposure. Now I'm gonna click on that, and we are set in manual exposure. I'm gonna go back to my menu. Now it auto-populates to log shooting setting. Once I click on that, you'll see that it's no longer grayed out, and then I would turn this one on if that's what I was planning on shooting. For now, I'm gonna leave it off because I know a lot of people might be beginners and they don't really know how to shoot and log. So we'll set a picture profile later in this video. But for now, let's just leave that set to off. We're gonna head out of here and we're gonna go over to our second column right here, and we're gonna head down until we get to zoom. Right here is zoom, and we're gonna jump over to zoom lever speeds. We're gonna click on that, and we're gonna change our zoom speed standby to 8 and our zoom speed to 1. This way, we can do dynamic slow zooms instead of having to do that in post-production. After we're done setting our zoom speed, we're gonna go head back out into the main menu, and we're gonna go to this middle column right here, and we're gonna head down until we get to shooting display. We're gonna turn our grid line display to on right here, and then we're gonna turn the grid line type to rule of thirds grid. Right now it's already set there. If you changed it, I would say set it to the rule of thirds grid. When we turn this on the ZV-E10 Mark II, it's going to display 2 different horizontal lines across the horizon and then 2 vertical lines on the outside, which divides the image into 9 equal parts. This will help you frame out your shots, but the most important thing is to use that bottom line on the grid to make sure that your horizon is level. Now, if you would like a more prominent grid, like a bold white line rather than a small thin black line, then come on out to the middle column here and head down to marker display. Go ahead and leave marker display off and then turn guide frame on. The guide frame will give you a nice bold grid, and it's great for when you're shooting in low light. All right, let's head out and we'll come down to shooting option, and you may want to turn on cinematic vlog set. We're going to skip over that one for right now, but if you want to get out some easy run and gun, right in camera type cinematic shots, which will add your black bars to the top and the bottom, and it will automatically shoot in 24 frames per second. That's a quick way to just jump and get it. But to have more control, we're gonna set up the camera to do our own thing the way that we want it to do. If you want it fast, go with that one. Next, I'm gonna go head over to exposure color, which is the 4th one down right here. You can see exposure color 16 out of 56. And then we're gonna scroll over until we get to ISO range limit. So we go to exposure and then ISO range limit. Once we get in here, we're gonna change our maximum to 2500. And I'll explain why we do this in a second. So we'll get it to 2500. There you go. I'm gonna click OK and come back out of it. The reason I set it to 2500 is because this camera has 2 different native ISO settings, 800 and 2500. And native ISO is important to know as a videographer because that's where your camera's sensor will perform the best. By using the native ISO settings, it can achieve the best possible image quality and help you make an informed decision when you're adjusting your exposure. If I'm in a run and gun situation and I have to throw this camera into auto ISO, I don't want that ISO to venture up into that 6400 range or even higher than that, because then my image will start to fall apart. And by the way, you may have noticed when I changed this camera's shooting mode from intelligent auto over to manual exposure, I went through the function menu to do that. I could do it right out here on the main display by touching it, but I don't like touching the display, mainly because that's a way to gunk up your screen, not be able to see it when you're out in sunny conditions as easily. And also, physical buttons and dials and switches on the outside of the camera provide tactile feedback for me, allowing me to make adjustments without taking my eyes off of the subject or the frame. All right, so let's back out of our ISO range limit now that we have that set, and we're gonna come down to metering. I'm gonna select metering mode right over here. We're gonna change that to highlight. This is what we'll be using when we flip our ISO to auto. Just wait till you see the shots that this metering mode can get you. We're gonna select on that and then head out here to white balance. Now, when we head over to the right here, which is 1956 white balance, you can see that our white balance is set to auto, and the one right below it, priority set and auto white balance, is set to standard. I set mine to auto white balance white. We get more into this in the course, but for now, auto white balance standard is the regular auto white balance setting that adjusts white balance based on the overall scene. And auto white balance white prioritizes keeping white areas in the scene as pure white for accurate color representation. So for the purposes of getting cinematic type shots, I leave mine on white. So I'm gonna click the middle selector button and we're gonna head out and we're gonna go down to color tone. If you're one of the ones that selected log footage on, then I'd say upload your LUT here so you can view it while you're filming by selecting your LUT. If you don't have any LUTs to upload to your camera, I have some that I created and I'll leave them in the description. But you could also download Sony's conversion LUTs from their website and use those LUTs within this camera to view your log footage. One more option that you could do is you could turn on Gamma Display Assist, which will also bring back the colors of your log footage compared to that washed out look on your display. This will make it easier to expose your image. If you're someone who was unsure about shooting with log, then go ahead and turn on S Cinetone in the picture profile. The way that we get there is we're gonna go up here to picture profile. We'll select on that, and we're gonna come down to PP11. And if you click onto the right, you'll see that your gamma is S Cinetone. And that's what we're gonna select, S Cinetone. So we're gonna head back and we're gonna pick picture profile 11. You're gonna enjoy the colors with this profile. Next, let's go down and turn off soft skin effect. This way, your camera will not decide what skin tones should look like. It won't add any type of softening to skin tones. so that you can get the most cinematic looking skin tones or realistic looking skin tones without any blemishing going on. After that, we're gonna head out of there and you're gonna see that there's a zebra display right here. We're gonna add this to our function menu later in the video. So let's head out of here and go over to autofocus, manual focus. And we're gonna switch over to the right. We're gonna go over to focus modes. I'm just gonna quickly point out the difference. It's manual focus and continuous autofocus. We're gonna actually add a toggle to one of our custom buttons, so we don't need to stay in here. But we are gonna go down to the autofocus transition speed, and we're going to change that to 1. This way, you'll be able to rack focus in a super cinematic way rather than those fast autofocus settings that Sony cameras come with right out of the box. Go ahead and press on the middle selector button so that you can lock that in place. You can change this with different memory recalls, which we will do, but we're just setting up our first one like this. Then after that, we're gonna head down to the focus area. And we're going to change this to wide for now. But we are going to add a few more focus area options. Let's go out of here and go down to focus area limit. We're gonna click on that. And now you can see that we have different options to add to our focus area options. We're gonna go ahead and add center fix and also small spot, which is right here, spot S. Click on that. Now that they're both checked, we're gonna come down to OK and press OK. We will be able to toggle between our different focus areas with a custom button, so that's kind of exciting. We're gonna head out of here and go down to subject recognition, and we're gonna go ahead and turn our subject recognition and autofocus to off. The reason I do this is because if I'm trying to film a city sequence or cinematic looking golden hour with buildings in the background, and I don't want the camera to automatically lock onto human beings' faces as they walk by, I'm gonna turn this one off. Now I'm gonna back out of here and go down to peaking display. I'm gonna leave peaking display off, but I will turn peaking level to high and my peaking color to red. Peaking display is something that I'm going to put into my function menu because I'll use that quite a bit when I'm trying to keep things in focus. I prefer peaking over focus mapping, so I'm gonna skip over focus mapping for now. Now we're gonna jump out of there and go all the way down to setup, which is our last one. It's that suitcase, the one that we started off with when we were resetting or initializing the camera back to its original state. I'm gonna head over to touch operation, and then I'm gonna go to shooting screen. I'm gonna turn this to off. You can leave this on if you want, but I turn it off because, like I mentioned, I try not touching the display, so there's no use for that shooting display on the main display for me. All it does for me is it gets in the way. Now you can swipe it out of the way, but then I'm touching the display again, so I prefer to keep it away. Then I'll come out of there to that middle column again, and I'll head down to monitor. I'm gonna go to the right here. 50 out of 56 is monitor brightness. We're gonna put that into menu number 1 because that's gonna be an essential function when we want to adjust the brightness of the display. For now, we're gonna leave it the way it is, but we are gonna come to display quality and I'm gonna change that to high. Now we are gonna add this to my menu because we don't wanna leave this on. It will drain your battery a bit faster, but I prefer to have it on when I go out and shoot my cinematic shots just to make sure that I can see every pixel possible. Then we're gonna head out of there and come down to the power setting option. We're gonna switch the power save time to 5 minutes. The reason I like to do this is because there's nothing worse than when your camera is set up on a tripod or a gimbal and you're ready to start shooting and all of a sudden it turns off. Even through this headshot that I've been doing where I've been showing this camera, it's shut off on me probably 7 or 8 times. It'd be nice to have it just stay on for about 5 minutes, and then if it shuts off, it's legitimately because I left it in my camera bag and I left it on and I want it to shut off. Then come down here to auto power off temp and make sure that is set to high. This will prevent your camera from overheating easier. You will get a warning message, but it's okay. I've done this to all of my cameras and none of them have ever died because I turned that setting on. So now we're done with all of the internal menu settings inside of the menu. It's time to jump to the outside of the camera and start customizing the buttons and dials. The way that we're going to customize our dials and buttons is we're going to go to their menu and head over to setup, which is right here. Then we're going to head up until we get to operation customize. And we're going to come over to this guy right here. There's 2 different custom key dial sets. One of them has a little photography camera and one of them has a video camera. Because we're setting up the buttons and dials for video, we want to set up custom key dial set with the video camera. We'll go ahead and click on that. I'm going to say don't show again. And the first thing that we're going to do in here is we're going to turn this dial to aperture and we're going to change our selector wheel to shutter speed. So let's head down to the very bottom here. We're going to change this dial And number 1 is this dial right here. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to come down and change that to aperture. And then I'm going to go to number 2, which is this one right here. That's the selector wheel right here. I'm going to click on it and come down and change it to shutter speed. To show you what that looks like when we come out into our main menu right here and we are in manual exposure, I can change my dial now, which will adjust my aperture. As long as I have a lens on the end of the camera that communicates with the camera, I'll be able to adjust my aperture like that. And then my scroll wheel will be the shutter speed, which you can see in the bottom left here. And then right now, as it's set, we have this right button or the right side of the scroll wheel to be our ISO. So we have all 3 of our exposure settings right here in the camera at my fingertips. We have our aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Now let's jump back into Operation Customize and keep on going. I'm going to jump up all the way into the top here, which is labeled as rear. And the first thing we're going to do is change our product showcase set. Down here, it's this little trash can button in the bottom right-hand corner of the camera. So I'll go ahead and click on that, and then you can switch it to whatever you want. Toggle through these menu settings, what you think is best for you. I like to change it over to autofocus, manual focus, selector toggle. This will enable me to switch between manual focus and autofocus on the fly with my thumb right here at the very bottom. And I can't tell you how many times I use this. Now, the next one down we see is focus standard. That's this middle selector button right here. And I'll leave this one set in place. This is the feature that lets me toggle between whatever focus area I have selected. I like this one because if I ever have to use the touch focus, I can get out of touch focus by pressing focus standard. Now the third one down is self timer. We are going to change this one to shoot mode. I know we have shoot mode in our function menu, but I always think it's best to have it in multiple places so you can get to it quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on my self timer and then I'm gonna go find it. It's gonna be this top left box with the video camera inside of it, and I'm gonna go up to the top here and we see shoot mode. I'm gonna click over and then choose shoot mode. Now this button right here, the left side of the selector wheel, will be my shoot mode. We're gonna keep ISO set to the right side because we wanna be able to quickly get to our ISO, and that's a good option to have it right there. You click it and then you switch the control wheel to change your ISO. And then I'm gonna come down to number 5, which is this bottom scroll wheel right here, and I'm going to change it over to magnify. The way I'm gonna get there is come over to my autofocus, manual focus, come over to focus assistant, and then come down to focus magnifier, which is 22 out of 31. So I'm gonna click on that, and now we have our focus magnifier as our bottom selector wheel toggle. This will enable me to quickly zoom in on the frame to make sure everything is in focus the way that I want it to be in focus. And then I can simply just come back by pressing this middle selector button. And focus magnifier for me is big when it comes to focus. I also will put focus peaking in the function menu, which also helps with focus as well. Now let's go back out to this main column right here, and we're gonna go down to this next option, which is the top of the camera right here. And we are going to select this number 1 first. This is our background defocus. It's our C1 button, and we are gonna change that to focus area. So I'm gonna click on it right here. Then I'm gonna go over to the left and go to my autofocus, manual focus box. Once I find it, I'm gonna head over and then head down to focus area and then click on focus area. And now focus area is set. Next, you can change this movie record button right here to something else. And then later in the settings, we can change the shutter button to be our record button. But I don't like to do that because I like to have muscle memory of where my record button is. And also this shutter button protrudes a little bit, and I feel like I would easily press on it by accident and start recording inadvertently, not meaning to. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to leave this record button as movie shooting, but if you wanted to, you could change that to something else. That's it for custom buttons for now. Let's jump into our function menu. This is the function menu as it is laid out right now. We are going to change a lot of this stuff to give us a different design. The new layout that we are going to set up in the function menu is designed to be more user-friendly with items kind of grouped together for easy access. If you're someone who doesn't mind touching the display, you can also swipe up to get to the function menu. So to customize your function menu, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go down to that little yellow suitcase, the same one that we were just in, at the bottom left when we click on the menu. So I'm gonna click on the menu, and I'm gonna head down to this little yellow suitcase down here at the bottom left. Then I'm gonna go over to Operation Customize. I'm gonna come over and go on up until I see function menu settings. This is 45 out of 56. By the way, these numbers might change as you customize your camera. I have seen the number go from 56 to 57 to 58 when I adjust different settings. So just because I say 45 out of 56 doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna match up with yours. Also, firmware updates come out, and so numbers are gonna change, but this is about the area of where you will find it. So function menu settings, we're gonna click on that. And then we have two options to go from. We have the top option, which will customize the function menu for taking photos or photography. And then the bottom one is for video. So the bottom one is the one that we are going to customize. The way that I like to set up my function menu is I like to have my exposure stuff over here, kind of exposure controls over here, split down the middle by picture profiles and exposure compensation, and then some focus stuff as we get towards the end over here. And once we end up over here, we get into shoot modes and also active stabilization. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is, although I'm going to keep picture profiles in the function menu, I'm just gonna move it somewhere else. This top left box, I like to keep it as metering. So I'm gonna find metering by going over here, scrolling up to metering, and I'm gonna change it to metering mode. Next, I'm gonna come down to white balance, and I'm gonna leave it just the way it is because I like to have my white balance within one click away so I can customize it. Then we're gonna go over to the next one, and this is going to be zebras. So we're gonna turn on our zebras. We're gonna come over to our exposure. Then we're gonna head down the line and go to zebra display. And we're gonna turn zebra display on. We're gonna come up here and we are going to turn this one to zebra level so that we can adjust the zebra levels as we are exposing. Next over, we are gonna change this to picture profile. So I'm gonna come into my main menu like this, and then I'm gonna head over to color tone in my exposure, down to color tone, and then I'm gonna go to picture profile. So now I have my picture profile set. Now underneath our picture profile, I like to have select LUT. This way I can easily get to my LUTs and change up the color profiles if I need to while I'm shooting in different picture profiles. So I'm gonna come back to my color tone, and then I'm gonna put select LUT. So my picture profile and then LUT right underneath that, depending on what I'm shooting. The next box over, we're gonna leave this as subject recognition autofocus. I'll come up here to recognition target, and I'm gonna change that to my frame rate. So I can easily toggle between my frame rates, 24 and 60 frames per second with the region that I'm in. So I'll click on this guy. I'm gonna come over here, go up to my shooting, and then I'm gonna head over to record frame rate. And then click on that. Then next over, we have what right now is set as focus mode. We're gonna change that to touch operation because there's a cool option in there when we're in program auto that I can quickly switch between in order to get some cool looking shots on the go. So I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna come down to setup, and I'm gonna go to touch operation. Sorry, it wasn't touch operation, it was touch function shooting. There's a cool thing that you can do while you're in program auto, while you're out trying to get some cool cinematic looking shots. And then we have this box right here, which is set as focus area right now. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to set this up as focus peaking. Focus peaking is going to help me make sure that I'm nailing my focus by giving me nice lines around the edges. And if you remember, we set up in the settings, not only do we want the peaking to be set at high, but we also want it to be set at red. Well, this is where it's going to matter when we turn it on and off so that we can see those nice red edges along the sharpest part of the frame. So I will go find peaking, which is right down here. It's autofocus, manual focus, 21 out of 26. And then we go to peaking display, and then I'm gonna come over here and click on peaking display. So our peaking is set. Now I'm gonna come up to the top right and change this one to stabilization. You never know when you're gonna need stabilization, whether you're on a tripod or you're hand holding and walking. So I want this to be a quick access where I can turn it on and off. I'm gonna come to this top red video camera right here, and then I'm gonna go to my image stabilization. I'm gonna go to steady shot, and I'm gonna change that one to steady shot. Now it will be set to active stabilization, and I can quickly toggle between them. And then we have our mode, which is our shoot mode, and we're gonna leave that in place for now. So that is how I set up my function menu for quick access to some of the most used functions in this camera when I go out to get cinematic type shots and low light shots. Now let's jump into my menu, and I'll show you where I put the rest of the pertinent stuff that I need to get quick access to my most used settings. So we're gonna hit our menu button, and now you can see at the very top left, that's my menu, the star that's up here. I'm gonna go ahead and click on my menu setting, which is right there in that middle column. So now you're going to click on add item, And now you can select from all of these different menu settings on what you want to put into my menu number 1. I put my shooting functions in menu 1 and my sights and sounds in menu 2. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to add format to our menu 1. So I'm going to find that by coming here, going down to media, and then format, which is 4 out of 53. I'm going to click on that, and then you can see that my menu 1 is highlighted. I'll click on that, and then there's a little orange line that heads over here above that adds to this location, and I'll press it again and it says added. Now I have format inside of my menu number 1. Let's keep on pushing forward. The next one I'm going to do is my custom key dial set. So I'm going to add my operation customize next by finding it right here, clicking on it, and then clicking my menu 1, and then you can see that little orange line. And now we just added that. I'm going to do the same thing for my function menu. Sometimes I might have something in my function menu that I don't necessarily need or use, and I want to switch that out with something that I do normally use. So I'm going to do function menu settings in my menu number 1. There's my third one added. Another thing that I want to put into my menu number 1, something that I don't use a ton, but I do like to go back and forth so I can toggle the speed between my autofocus, is autofocus transition speed. The way that I get there is I'm going to head over here, go up to that purple box, which is autofocus manual focus. I'm going to go ahead and click on autofocus manual focus, go over to the right, and then I'm going to go on down until I see autofocus transition speed. I'm going to click on that. Now we have our fourth thing added to the My Menu system. Another thing that I like to quickly toggle between is log shooting. I don't like to go into the menu too deep to find out where log is. I'm going to get to there by going to my shooting mode and then head over to image quality / record. And then I'm going to head on down until I see log shooting setting. There it is right there. And I'm going to add that to my menu number 1. There's number 5 set to my menu 1. Now that I have log shooting in my menu 1, I also want to put gamma display assist in there. So to get there, I'm going to head out and go over to setup, which is all the way down, and then head down to display option, which is 48 out of 53. And I'm going to come over to gamma display assist and put that in there as well. Now another one that I like to have in my menu is the anti-flicker set. So how we're going to get there is we're going to go up to our shooting mode again, and then we're going to come up to this top red box and then come on down until we see shutter silent right here, number 6, 8 out of 53, and then go on down to our anti-flicker set and have that set in place. That's my menu number 1. Now it's time to move to my menu number 2. The first thing that I like to do is add silent mode settings. That way I can toggle between whether or not you hear the beep on the record chime on this camera or you don't. Thankfully for us, if you're following along, you'll see that silent mode settings is right up here. So I'm going to do my menu number 2. Once I select it, I'm going to come down to my menu number 2, and then I'm going to select that. Now that's added to my menu number 2. Don't forget that sights and sounds are menu 2 and my shooting settings are menu 1. The next one we're going to do is audio record level, and that's in the shooting box or the top box right here. And then we just come down and then we see audio recording. Go over and then pick 9 out of 53, which is audio record level. The next thing we're going to do is set our monitor brightness. So let's head back over here. We're going to go down to the bottom, the suitcase again, and we're going to go down to display. And we're going to go down to monitor and monitor brightness. Make sure it's on my menu number 2. And then also while we're here, let's add display quality. I'm going to add that to my menu number 2. And the last thing that I set up in my menu 2 is marker display. If you remember, marker display is going to give us that bolder grid, that white bold grid, rather than the small thin black lines. And I would use this one when I'm in a low light situation and I can't see those black lines. I'm shooting something dark or in high contrast. I want to be able to see my grids, so I'll turn marker display on. So I'm going to come down to my menu setting, add item, and we are going to go find marker display. And then at the top here, you see that we have the camera box selected. It's almost like a reddish, pinkish box. And we're going to come over to the next column, and we're going to head down until we get to marker display. I'm going to click over right here, and we're going to go down to marker display, and I'm going to add that to my menu number 2. So now I'm just going to show you both of my menus, my menu number 1 and my menu number 2, in case you want to take a screenshot or set up your my menu 2 to mirror what I have. This is my menu number 2, the sights and sounds, and this is my menu number 1, what I use to shoot my videos. So that's how I set up my menu. Now let's jump onto memory recall. Now, first of all, for these 3 different recalls, I use XAVC HS 4K, and my record setting is 420 10-bit. So you can change yours to whatever it is that you want to shoot with, whatever your editing rigs can handle, but I'm gonna leave my record frame rate to 24 frames per second, my record setting to 420 10-bit, and my file format to XAVC HS 4K. Now I'm gonna jump into my main menu. I'm gonna change my shutter speed to 1/48. I'm gonna change my aperture to as low as it can go. Right now we are at f3.5, that's just with this lens, but if I'm out trying to get some cinematic shots, I may use a cine lens or something else. I'll just bring the aperture as low as it can go. Now I'm gonna go into my function menu so I can easily get to a lot of these different settings. I'm gonna leave my auto white balance set to auto for now, but I know it's here and it's ready to customize once I get out into the field. I'm gonna leave the zebras off. I don't need those yet, but they will be here in case I need to turn them on so I can expose properly. I have my picture profile set to picture profile 11, which is S Cinetone, but you could turn picture profile off and turn on log shooting if you want to really go cinematic. The reason I'm doing this is just for the purposes of this tutorial. I'm going to turn my subject recognition to off, and then I'm going to go back out into the main menu and head over to my menu number 1, what we just customized, and come on down to autofocus transition speed and turn this to 1. Now this is the way I set up for my cinematic shots for 4K 24, and I'm gonna save this in my memory recall. The way I'm gonna get to memory recall is I'm gonna go to menu. I'm gonna go over to shooting. I'm gonna come on down to shooting mode. I'm gonna go to camera set memory. I'm gonna click on that. We see that it's at number 1. You can choose between 1, 2, and 3. I'm gonna choose number 1. I'm gonna press enter. Now we are registered. Now let's go set up our second preset, which is 4K 24 for low light shooting. So the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna head out. We are already set up with 24 frames per second from our last memory recall, and I'm gonna leave my shutter speed in 1/48. Then I'm going to leave my aperture as low as it can go, like we mentioned before. I'm gonna come over to my ISO and I'm gonna turn that one up to 2500. You can see you can't even go above that because we already set our maximum ISO range to 2500, so we're all set. Then I'm going to jump into my function menu and I'm gonna leave my auto white balance on. We know it's there, we're ready to customize it once we get out into the field. Now I'm gonna come over to my picture profile, and now I'm gonna change this one to picture profile 6, and I'm gonna hit the little right button and come on down and change my gamma to Cine 4. And then I'm gonna make sure that the color mode is set to cinema. And then I'm gonna come out. I'll make sure subject recognition autofocus is off. Now I'm gonna come out and into the main display. I'm gonna go to menu number 1, my menu 1, and I'm gonna turn autofocus transition speed to 4. When we're out there in the low light environment, we're gonna wanna have a little bit more sensitivity to capture things faster with our autofocus. Now I'm gonna go back to my menu and I'm going to go to shooting, come down to shooting mode, camera set memory, and we have our second memory set. Now let's go set up our memory for bright sunlight. The way we're gonna do that is we are going to come over here into our menu, go to shooting. We're gonna go to image quality, which is 6 out of 58. Come down to movie settings. We're gonna click on that and we're gonna change our frame rate to 60 frames per second. Then we're gonna make sure that our record setting is back to 420 10-bit because it reverts down to 45 megabits when you change it. I don't know why that is, but look, you also get an extra 50 megabits when you shoot in the 60 frame per second frame rate. So we're all set here. Now I'm gonna back out and go to our main display. Now we're back out in the main display. I'm gonna turn our shutter speed right here to 1/125. Then I'm gonna turn my aperture up to f7.1. And I'm gonna turn my ISO down. When there's a lot of light outside, the ISO won't be affected. Now I'm gonna turn my white balance by going to my function menu to 5600 by coming down and going to the C temp filter. This is the custom way to custom set our Kelvin. I'm gonna set that one to 5600. Now I'm back in my function menu and I'm gonna turn my zebras on because we want those things on, and I'm going to turn the zebra level to 80 so that we can really see those highlights and make sure we're not blowing out anything. I'm gonna change my picture profile to S Cinetone, which is picture profile 11, like that. Now I'm gonna come into my menu and go over to my menu 1, and head down and turn autofocus transition speed back down to 1. Now I'll save that as my memory recall number 3. We're gonna do that by going to our shooting mode, head over to camera set memory, and make that number 3. Now we are all registered with our 3 different memory recalls so that we can go out and get those 3 different types of shots. Now I get to my memory once I have it saved in here by hitting the side selector button or getting to the shoot mode. And if you see, you can kind of scroll through all of these different ones: program auto, aperture priority, shutter priority, manual exposure. At the very bottom, you have memory or MR1 cam set. So you can go over and now you can choose which one you want. You can see they all change as we go through. You can choose whatever one you want. If I'm shooting cinematic, I'm gonna go to number 1. If I'm out in low light, I'm gonna go to number 2, and then bright sunlight, number 3. So that's the 5 ways I use shortcuts and customizations to go out and get amazing shots, cinematic shots, and also how to shoot in low light. If you thought this was helpful, then let me know in the comments and consider picking up my course where I actually show you how to implement all of these settings into your workflows and use them with this camera to go out and get amazing shots. Thank you for watching this video. I'm Joe with the Film Alliance. Have a nice rest of your week.